This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Dozens killed in bomb attack on the outskirts of Mogadishu. Tight security in Libya's capital Tripoli as fighting escalates. And we take you to some of this year's most popular travel spots for adventure seekers. Hello and a very warm welcome to Africa Live here on CGTN. I'm Mark Mutua in Nairobi. Here's what else is coming up on the bulletin. Zambia's state-owned power utility gets the green light to hike electricity prices. And in sport, we take you to the Kenyan coastal city of Lamu to tell you about the popular board game Karom. We start the bulletin in the Horn of Africa, where 70 people have been killed and over 90 others wounded following a blast targeted at a tax collection center in the capital Mogadishu on Saturday. Spokesperson for Somalia's Ministry of Information, Ismail Mukhtar Omar, confirmed the blast's death toll on Twitter. Speaking to reporters at the blast site, the governor of Banaadir region and mayor of Mogadishu, Omar Mohamed Mohamud, said that at least 90 persons were injured in the attack. Among those killed were children and several students from Banaadir University. The students were traveling when their bus was hit by the explosion. The attack becomes one of the deadliest in Somalia this year.
Today, towards the end of December, a massive explosion happened after a truck laden with explosives went off in X-control. It caused the death and injuries of many. We don't have an exact number of the death toll, but about 90 people were injured according to witnesses. We will confirm the death toll afterwards, but the number will not be small.
Right, well, let's get more from Mohamed Kahir Mohamed, a journalist in Somalia, on that blast. He joins us live from Mogadishu. Mohamed, what more can you tell us about this explosion?
Well, latest medical sources indicate that at least 61 people were killed and more than 90 were wounded in this latest attack south of the capital Mogadishu on a busy Saturday morning. Well, as you have mentioned in introduction, the mayor of Mogadishu, Omar Mahmoud, was there, and then he pointed finger to the armed group Al-Shabaab, which he said they're behind this attack, though the group has not up to now released any statement as they have been doing it previously. So this is one of the worst attacks since the 2017 October attack that more than 500 or 300 people were killed.
Now, Mohammed, this is the third terror attack inside Somalia in the last 8 days. Have security agencies there said anything about the escalation of attacks at this time, or if there's any connection between them?
Well, there is no comment from the security agencies, including the police so far. But remember, this attack comes amid heightened security across the city for the past months, which in fact reduced the number of attacks carried out by armed group Al-Shabaab. So I think this was being expected because there has been increased checkpoints across the city, security operations carried out across, a number of people arrested in connection to trying to carry out attacks across the city.
And Mohammed, how exactly is the security situation this year affecting business and everyday life of ordinary Somalis living and working in the capital there?
Well, Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia, is actually a volatile city when it comes to security in the country. Business has been one of the largest affected by the insecurity in Somalia. You can remember the hotel attack, SYL attack, where the armed group Al-Shabaab gained access and carried out some attacks, and many people were killed. So most of the targets that the armed group target is the business centers and business areas where they actually get more damages on this, and also government installations are also becoming a target. So most casualties are people who are doing business in the city. The government has, in the past months, closed key roads entering the city center, which affected many small businesses in Somali capital. But generally, the security is improving across the city with increased checkpoints and other mechanisms, including CCTV cameras.
All right, thank you very much for your insight there, Mohammed Kahir Mohammed, a reporter in Somalia, joining us live there from Mogadishu. Well, now, security forces on the streets of Tripoli were on high alert as fighting between Libya's conflicting forces escalated on Friday. Libya's internationally recognized Government of National Accord in Tripoli has been struggling to keep off General Khalifa Haftar's forces, which have been supported by Russia, Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan. Haftar's Libyan National Army has been trying to take Tripoli since April from the GNA, which was set up in 2016 following a UN-brokered deal. On Thursday, an airstrike blamed by local officials on Haftar's forces hit a pharmacy in Zawiya town, killing 2 people. Haftar's fighters have failed to reach the center of Tripoli, but have made small gains in recent weeks. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's announcement of a possible troop deployment to Tripoli is now raising the stakes in the conflict that has already sucked in regional and Western powers. Let's take a look at what's at stake for Turkey. Laura Walubengo has that story.
It has long been known that Ankara has been supporting the besieged Libyan Government of National Accord that is based in Tripoli. Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj is currently battling Eastern Commander Khalifa Haftar for Tripoli. This conflict broke out in April 2019 after Commander Haftar ordered his troops to go for Tripoli, having captured strategic oil fields from government forces. As the conflict got underway, several regional nations took sides. Saudi Arabia, France, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Russia and even the United States were linked to Haftar. Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj on his part is allegedly enjoying the support of Turkey, Italy and Qatar. All these were mere whispers until the Turkish president's recent open oil deals and the military support agreement with the Libyan administration. He signed a maritime border agreement with Tripoli, which creates an exclusive economic zone from Turkey's southern Mediterranean shore to Libya's northeast coast. This rattled Cyprus and Greece, which have been at odds with Ankara over maritime borders for decades. Days later, Ankara announced yet another deal with Tripoli. This time round, it was a military cooperation agreement. Erdogan's surprise visit to Tunisia was the telltale sign of Ankara's ambitions for Libya. When he landed back in Ankara, Erdogan spoke about the military plans.
Turkey signed a maritime agreement with Libya on one hand. On the other hand, we signed a military cooperation agreement with them. Hopefully, this agreement will pass from our parliament around 8th to 9th of January, and we will accept the invitation to send troops to Libya. This is the reason we are holding all these meetings. We are standing by the legitimate government of the country and accept their invitation. This is our difference.
It was not surprising, for the Libyan government has previously acknowledged receiving arms from Ankara, including these Kirpi armoured vehicles. However, putting Turkish boots on the Libyan soil could be an escalation of the situation. It will be the first time that a foreign army is participating in the conflict since America, France and the UK bombed Gaddafi out of Tripoli in 2011. Currently, President Erdogan is at loggerheads with the US over plans to acquire Russian missile defense systems. Being a NATO ally, the US sees this as a betrayal of the cause. Recently, the Turkish president was forced to back down from a military incursion into eastern Syria after Russia hardened its position over the move. The Trump administration negotiated the deal. Now, Libya is looking up to be yet another frontier for Ankara to collide with her former and present allies, including Russia, which is said to be on Khalifa Haftar's side. It could be a tough situation, especially if Haftar's supporters also send in their troops. Foreign powers fear that Libya could be yet another ground for proxy wars, wars that allow terrorist elements to regroup and flourish. President Erdogan's fluid relationship with regional and foreign powers fits into the long history of Turkey. In the run-up to the Crimean War, then Prime Minister of Britain, John Russell, is said to have described the Ottoman Empire as the sick man of Europe. The name has stuck up to now. Well, the Ottoman Empire is the present-day Turkey, and Erdogan seems to be walking that talk. Laura Walubengo, CGTN.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there. To see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. Now, the remains of 6 people on board a tour helicopter that crashed on Thursday have been recovered in a mountainous area in Hawaii. A total of 7 individuals, including 2 children, were on the flight. Local authorities said there may be no survivors, and they will continue to search for the 7th set of remains. Investigators of the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board are scheduled to arrive in Hawaii over the weekend. Now, 2 former prime ministers of Guinea-Bissau have been conducting last-minute campaigns as the West African nation prepares for an election runoff on Sunday. As CGTN's Daniel Arap Moi reports, incumbent President Jose Mario Vaz is officially out of the race.
It is a carnival moment as the 2 candidates Domingos Pereira and Umaro Sissoko Embalo consolidate their support bases. It's a matter of hours before the people of Guinea-Bissau decide. For the 2, the state of the economy of Guinea-Bissau and the fight against corruption are the 2 issues of great concern.
Domingos Simoes Pereira and his Prime Minister Aristides Gomes misappropriated millions of dollars from the state. That's equivalent to 7 months of your salaries. You have to punish them at the ballot. Vote massively against them, so they will remember it all their lives.
Sorting out social issues is an everyday job. The President of the Republic is the one who communicates with the nation. He's the one who listens to different levels of our society. He knows how women live, how the youth look into the future, how the elderly are treated within society. It's a continuous exercise of discovering challenges and overcoming those challenges.
In the November elections, Pereira emerged top with 40% of the total votes cast. His rival Embalo garnered 28%. President Jose Mario Vaz was a distant 4th with 12%. He is now out of the race and waits to hand over to whoever emerges winner between Pereira and Embalo. President Vaz's tenure has been marred by political infighting that saw him work with 7 different prime ministers, including the 2 current candidates. The emergence of Guinea-Bissau as a major route for drug dealers is also shaping the political discourse in the West African nation. However, President Vaz has also beaten the odds and completed his term in office. This former Portuguese colony has been plagued by a history of coups. As campaigns conclude, locals are heading to the polls on Sunday to make their choice. Daniel Arap Moi, CGTN.
Now, a group of opposition parties in Côte d'Ivoire have accused state authorities of trying to intimidate them before next year's presidential election. They denounced a new arrest warrant for presidential candidate Guillaume Soro. Speaking at a news conference, politician Nonzi Ouattara from the Coalition for Reconciliation, Democracy and Peace, an alliance of 21 opposition parties, said that Soro was not guilty of anything. A public prosecutor has said Guillaume Soro, a former rebel leader in Côte d'Ivoire, could face life in prison for allegedly plotting a coup. The case has increased tensions ahead of the October 2020 vote, which is regarded as a test of Côte d'Ivoire's stability after 2 civil wars. Soro is believed to be in Europe, although his exact whereabouts are unclear. He has denounced the investigation as politically motivated.
The phone recording by the public prosecutor has been described by this same prosecutor as being bad quality, to the surprise of TV viewers and journalists who had their doubts. These activities look like maneuvers to stop any criticism from the opposition at a time when the government should start to prepare for fair, credible and transparent elections in 2020 by putting in place non-conflictual structures. We are not envisaging he will be trialed in Ivory Coast or outside the country, because for us, Guillaume Soro is guilty of nothing.
To Nigeria now, where more condemnation continues after the execution of 11 Christians by terrorist group ISWAP. The country's President Muhammadu Buhari described the killings as barbaric, saying it does not represent the Islamic faith. He says the killings are an attempt to divide the nation across religious lines. You're watching Africa Live here on CGTN. Time for us to take a short break. Coming up, how community sociotherapy is helping Liberians deal with trauma from war and Ebola. And Senegal's Museum of Black Civilizations traces history of Africa from the beginning of humanity to the present day.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Recapping an earlier story now to Nigeria, where more condemnation continues after the execution of 11 Christians by terrorist group ISWAP. The country's president, Muhammadu Buhari, described the killings as barbaric, saying it does not represent the Islamic faith. He says the killings are an attempt to divide the nation across religious lines.
Buhari's reaction came through an official statement released from the presidency. It says, and I quote, "These agents of darkness are enemies of our common humanity, and they don't spare any victim, whether they're Muslims or Christians. And therefore, we shouldn't let them divide us and turn us against one another." End of quote. The Islamic State group recently released a video purportedly showing the killing of 11 Christians. The group claimed government failed to negotiate their release. What's more, they're avenging the death of their leader. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was killed in October during a U.S. raid in Syria.
On Christmas Day, while the Christians are celebrating and the Christian has been killed, you know, it's going to bring some kind of grievances to the Christian. But by the way, I'm not saying that the Christians should react, but all we just want in this country is just peace.
It is quite worrisome, stating that those people that are having this issue don't even know how to go about it. So I want to believe that we still have a long way to go as regards this. The federal government needs to buckle up. They have to look for modalities to comb this current challenge.
Buhari himself, a Fulani Muslim, has severally been accused of being biased towards the religion. But he has urged Nigerians to be united in the fight against insurgency and avoid conspiracy theories that serve the interests of the terrorists. Terrorist groups have remained active in Nigeria's northeastern region in the past 10 years. Tens of thousands have been killed and millions displaced from their homes. The wanton destruction has also stalled economic activities in the region, leading to a massive humanitarian crisis. Kelechi Amekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Right, well, to give more perspectives on the security situation in Nigeria following that attack, we have Colonel retired Hassan Stan Labo joining us live from Lagos, Nigeria. Now, the beheadings are a signature style of ISIL. What does this say about the strength of ISIL in Nigeria? Colonel retired Hassan Stan Labo joining us live from Lagos. I'll begin by asking you.
Sorry for that hitch.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, we cannot downplay the capacity of these terrorist groups in leashing out terror and I mean the level of callousness they will be able to exhibit, or the extent to which they could be brutish. However, it is clear that we should expect to see henceforth far more brutish activities as this, because of course it represents all their attempts to be able to see how much of vengeance they can bring to bear in their very great loss, okay, of their leader al-Bakr. And you will agree with me that when they make bold attempts at creating divisiveness within a country like Nigeria that is highly religious sensitive, by going after the Christians on a day as Christmas or a few days to Christmas and so on, they want to sow some seeds of discord. You know, it is important that we stress this, because if they succeed in doing this, then of course it means that there will be some form of religious divisiveness amongst Nigerians born out of the situation in the Northeast. This war has gone on for about 10 years now, and it has taken the lives of well over 36,000 persons, rendering over 2 million homeless or destitute or displaced persons, so to speak. And I must praise the sagacity with which the Nigerian people have been able to withstand every attempt coming out of actions by the terrorists to divide them by way of religion or whatever. Instead, we have continually seen the entire Nigerian population coming together in unity to see that they are able to ward off this challenge that is before their country.
And
one might
Colonel
want to
retired,
say,
I'll just jump in there and ask you, what options does Nigeria and the Sahel countries have now in dealing with the daring nature of IS-linked terror groups there? Well, we seem to have lost the Colonel retired Hassan Stan Labo, speaking to us live there from Lagos. He is a security consultant there. Well, moving on to Senegal, the Museum of Black Civilizations, built and equipped by China, celebrates its first anniversary. The main goal of the establishment is to present the history of Africa and its diaspora from the beginning of humanity to the present day through works of art. This year's celebration coincides with the largest Pan-African exhibition themed Lend Me Your Dream. CGTN's Beryl Oro has that report.
Since its inauguration in December 2018, the Museum of Black Civilization has continued to host large-scale exhibitions, conferences, and scientific meetings. The museum was built thanks to cooperation between Senegal and China.
Je pense le musée le plus important I think it is the most important museum in Africa. It is also one of the most important cultural institutions in the world. The museum has housed over 70 cultural, scientific and recreational events.
This museum welcomes all African artists and has become a junction of contemporary African art. It was built thanks to the good cooperation that exists between Senegal and China. Today, I'm very proud to attend this kind of exhibition because that was our goal, that the building can accommodate all African artists.
Built on a total area of 14,000 meters squared, this museum cost more than 30 million euros and can accommodate up to 18,000 exhibits.
This museum has become an opportunity for contemporary artists. There are many important artists known to the African public who today succeed in making themselves known through this museum.
This gigantic museum was born from China-Africa cooperation, and it is quite a symbol that this museum is built on an architectural orientation which is inspired by the boxes of Casamance and also the round boxes of the Great Zimbabwe. It is important to salute the fact, with the help of China, this remains a symbol of good cooperation between Africa and the world. Mao Zedong himself said that Africans are friends with China.
The Museum of Black Civilization has become a cradle of authentic pieces and original works retracing the powerful march of humanity and the evolution of the black world and its people. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
Grief and trauma are still common in Liberia, a country that is haunted by a 14-year-old civil war. An Ebola outbreak also killed over 4,800 people. Experts believe that a tenth of the population suffers from mental illness. But for a country with only one registered psychiatric hospital and few health workers with adequate knowledge of mental illness, community sociotherapy is helping fill the gap. CGTN Susan Mongeli now reports.
My name is Prince. When I was 14 years, rebel forces attacked my hometown. We were in the house. They attempted to set our house on fire. As a young boy, they immediately took me with them because at the time, they had lost many soldiers in the battle. I did not participate actively in the war, but I was their errand boy. And yes, I witnessed a lot of bad things. I always feel terrible when I remember.
Prince's story is by no means unique in Liberia. He's just one among tens of thousands with symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, brought about by the civil war and further deepened by the Ebola crisis.
When it started, my daughter complained of a high fever. I took her to a health center here. They could not treat her, so I brought her back home. After a week, the Ebola team came and took her away to the treatment unit in the community. In the evening, we went to check up on her but didn't find her. We were told she had been transferred to the main unit and it was confirmed she had Ebola.
Her daughter eventually died, as was the case with thousands of Ebola victims in the country. Both the civil war and the Ebola outbreak left deep scars. In the case of Ebola, communities were quarantined, leading to a lack of trust and social cohesion. Zoa International, in partnership with YMCA Social Welfare, has been leading a program on community-based sociotherapy as a way to rebuild trust.
It's a project that molds the minds of people, that brings people together to solve problems, to be able to solve problems at the community level instead of going to court. You are almost something like counseling. You talk to people, I'm able to solve my problem. If, for example, you have an experience and I bring my problem to the group, you'll be able to explain to me how you overcame your problem in the past.
Participants attend weekly sessions for 4 months, led by a trained local facilitator.
The program works for everybody, people who are Muslim, people who are Christians. We come together to discuss our problem, people who are mentally ill, people who have this kind of mental disorder because of things that happen in their home, because of violence. We also have to do with SGBV, people who are being abused by their husband, people who are being abused by their wives, and people who abuse their children. So the program teaches people how to conduct themselves in the home, how to handle their homes, how to take care of the home, how to live in harmony and peace.
Such sessions have been replicated in various parts of Liberia, and not only do they provide a means of healing wounds of the past, but also promoting social cohesion, which is very critical for a country like Liberia as it seeks to chart a new path.
More than 10,000 people across the country are expected to participate in the program by the end of 2020.
Since I came in contact with social therapy here, I have begun to feel happy again because I interact with other people who appear to want the best for me. It takes my mind off those issues that happened before. I'm now being introduced to issues of safety. It has really motivated me, and I can say now I feel I can make something out of myself.
To say yes, I can make it.
However, there are those that argue that such programs are not doing enough, and that accountability and bringing perpetrators of war to justice is the only way to bring about deeper reconciliation. But without a war crimes court, as recommended by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in 2009, community-based social therapy appears to be the only chance at bringing peace and healing to Liberia, at least for now. Susan Mungeli, CGTN, in Monrovia, Liberia.
You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. Shortly, we'll be bringing you all the day's business, including Zambia's state-owned power utility gets the green light to hike electricity prices. And experts and lawmakers discuss money laundering and tax evasion in Tunis.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
In business, China has launched its largest carrier rocket, Long March 5, successfully sending a communication satellite into orbit. The launch paves the way for other major missions in 2020. Our reporter Wu Lei was at the island launch site in southern China.
Lifting off from China's only coastal launch site, Wenchang Space Launch Center in Hainan Province, this 57-meter tall Long March 5 is by far China's most capable carrier rocket in terms of payload capacity. After a 2,220-second flight, it has successfully sent the Shijian 20 communications satellite into geostationary transfer orbit.
Generally speaking, we will take this successful launch as a new starting point. We need to keep improving the Long March 5 rocket's reliability and mission test capabilities. Further efforts and continuous improvements are needed.
After over 10 years research and development, the first Long March 5 was launched in 2016, but this was followed by a failed second launch in 2017. Engineers have conducted a large number of ground tests to solve any technical issues. Launching anything into space has its risks. No one can guarantee a 100% success, but this success shows these engineers' 900-plus days of preparation and efforts have paid off. The launch and delivery will play a key role in China's future space exploration. In 2020, the Long March 5 is expected to send China's first probe to Mars, along with sending the Chang'e 5 lunar probe to the Moon to collect lunar samples. Further modifications to the rocket will be used to construct China's space station. Wu Lei, CGTN, Wenchang Space Launch Center.
And as the year draws to a close, CGTN's Robert Nagila sat down with China's ambassador to Kenya, Wu Peng, for a wide-ranging conversation looking back at the year that was and what Africa can look forward to from its largest trading partner and investor, China, in 2020.
As 2019 comes to an end, I'm joined by the Chinese ambassador to Kenya, His Excellency Wu Peng. Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. We do appreciate it.
You are welcome.
Your Excellency, now I'll start off by asking, how would you describe China's relationship with Kenya at this particular moment?
China and Kenya are good brothers, not only just a development partner. Our relationship in recent years has developed by leaps and bounds. Kenya is an active partner in Belt and Road cooperation, and the Standard Gauge Railway from Mombasa to Nairobi is a sweet fruit of our two countries' cooperation. As Chinese President Xi Jinping emphasized in his meeting with President Uhuru Kenyatta, our bilateral relations are strategic and high level. Since 2015, China has been Kenya's largest trade partner and Kenya's major source of foreign direct investment. Currently, there are over 400 Chinese companies operating in Kenya, creating roughly 130,000 jobs for Kenyans. Nowadays, Kenya has become a favorable tourist destination in Africa of Chinese people. And studying in China has become a popular trend among Kenya young generation. The two people's friendship enjoys solid foundation.
Your Excellency, could you give us your recollections of major achievements in 2019 between China and Kenya?
Politically, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta successfully visited China again this year for the second International Forum on Belt and Road Cooperation. Mr. Yang Jiechi, as President Xi Jinping's special representative, visited Kenya, and Mr. Wang Yun, as special envoy, attended the launching ceremony of SGR Phase 2A freight service in Nairobi. The Garissa Power Station, the largest solar power station in East Africa, was also completed and put into operation. The Nairobi Airport Expressway, the first BOT project with Chinese investment, was officially put into construction. It shows that we are actively working together with Kenya people to achieve the Big Four agenda and the Vision 2013. From January to September 2019, Kenya registered about $105 million worth of exports to China, with a year-on-year increase of about 57%. That is a huge increase. Exports of fresh flowers has grown substantially. Now I'm very glad to tell you that from January 1st to 2020, the tariff of Kenya frozen avocado has been reduced from 30% to just 7%.
Your Excellency, looking forward to 2020, what trade and cultural opportunities are there for African countries in China in 2020?
I must emphasize that China's door of reform and opening up will keep opening further. In 2020, China will host the third China International Import Expo, CIIE. As China is currently making efforts to transform from a big trade country to a powerful trade country, that means it's put more emphasis on enlarging imports. The Chinese people's increasing demand for high quality, pollution-free and green products actually means good business opportunity for African countries.
And finally, Your Excellency, how would you describe China's involvement in Africa in 2019, and what can we expect in 2020?
Most important, let me put it into this way. We follow the principle advocated by our President Xi Jinping, the principle of pursuing the greater good and the shared interests, and strengthen solidarity and cooperation with African countries. In this year, 2019, the coordinators meeting on the implementation of the follow-up actions of the FOCAC Beijing Summit was successfully held in Beijing. In 2020, we'll continue to support the legitimate aspiration of African countries and advance our shared interests. We should work harder to increase Africa exports to China, to improve the trade structure further between China and Africa. And the Chinese side also shall encourage transform of Chinese enterprises operating in Africa from just a constructor to investors. Meanwhile, we should educate Chinese people in Africa to engage more closely with local community and strictly follow the laws and regulations at host countries.
Your Excellency, it's been an absolute pleasure. On behalf of everyone at CGTN Africa, I'd like to wish you and the embassy staff a happy 2020 and a prosperous new year. Thank you very much.
CGTN's Robert Nagila there speaking with the Chinese ambassador to Kenya. Moving on, Zambia's state-owned power utility ZESCO will raise electricity prices for residential and commercial customers starting in January. The firm desperately needs to attract investment in power generation. The regulator has allowed ZESCO to increase tariffs for the least consuming residential customers by more than 200%. However, the revised prices will not affect global mining firms that include First Quantum Minerals, Glencore, Barrick Gold Corp and Vedanta Resources, which all operate in Africa's second largest copper producer. The country's power supply shortage rose to 810 megawatts in November from 750 in September. To remedy this, ZESCO management say they expect to rapidly commission new power plants. Now, Tunisia is hosting the African Forum on Money Laundering, Tax Evasion and Illicit Financial Flows. The international event has attracted tax lawyers, academics, economists and parliamentarians from many African states. CGTN's Adnan Shawashi has more.
The Tunisian Observatory of Economy has published an alarming study based on a report published by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The study underscores that Africa is losing substantial resources through illicit financial flows.
Africa loses an average of $50 billion every year. We are launching the African campaign to fight illicit financial flows.
Experts noted that the African continent lost between 2003 and 2014 more than $1.4 billion because of illicit financial flows.
This constitutes one of the major handicaps to the mobilization of resources in Africa. We could avoid public development aid and finance basic social services with this money. Africa is rich in resources, but poor in management and the distribution of these resources.
Participants also shed light on the amount of money that can be lost as a result of tax evasion and tax avoidance practices. Accordingly, the digital economy can facilitate this phenomenon through its business model.
For example, subscription-based model. We know Amazon made a profit of $100 billion in 2018, but they paid $0 in tax in the United States. We also know Netflix earned about $845 million in 2018, but they basically paid $0 in tax. So here we have the digital economy that allows you to make so much of money, but how much of it are we getting in taxes is what the problem is.
Tax lawyers have recommended the implementation of measures to strengthen financial transparency, the revision of international taxation standards that influence tax systems in Africa, the establishment of computer systems for processing financial reporting, and improving skills in negotiating economic contracts. African lawmakers noted that the volume of illicit financial flows from emerging and developing countries between 2003 and 2012 reached $6.6 trillion. Sub-Saharan Africa is the region most affected by the fight of illicit capital flows that are estimated at 5.5% of GDP per year in the region. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Now, travel is an undisputed way to broaden one's horizons, and in 2019, some travel destinations called to those seeking some of the out-of-the-ordinary adventures. Let's take a look.
2019 was the 20th anniversary of Harbin Ice and Snow World, a freezing fantasy in China's most northern province. The breathtaking event brightens up each January with fireworks and exquisitely carved illuminated ice and snow sculptures. Weddings here are a very traditional affair, with fairy tale dresses more suited to warmer climates. A further reminder of the dilemma tourism poses to the environment came in 2019 on Thailand's Koh Phi Phi Island, when authorities had to close a picturesque bay.
It was clean and full of fishes, and we can make a great snorkeling there.
In Costa Rica, a community project run by local women is teaching visitors from across the world how to produce organic food. The Huani Lama Reserve Tourism Project began as a conservation project 19 years ago, and it aims to protect the forest against logging and poaching.
Very good for us to be involved with people and see the real Costa Rica.
Below the shafts of an abandoned silver mine in Andalusia, Spain, a cavity of rock filled with crystal has been a sensation. It is expected to change the fortunes of the small town Phu Phi that lies above it. Visitors first have to walk down the long, dusty mine shaft before heading down newly installed metal staircases which take them through the vast caverns of the mine.
And still to come here on Africa Live. Telling Somalia's story, new artistic initiative seeks to inspire positive journalism.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Let's take you to Somalia now, where a local initiative is providing a platform for journalists and artists in the country to showcase their best work. While also hoping to promote a positive view of the country, art lovers can shop among the displayed photos for pieces that appeal to them. CGTN's Jane Keo brings us this story.
My Gallery is a program by local media and technology companies in Mogadishu, providing a space for photojournalists and artists in Somalia to display their beautifully captured photos and crafted paintings.
The main purpose of this program, My Gallery, is to encourage the photojournalists and to show the outside world and what's happening, truly happening in Somalia, and to focus on more positive stories, and at the same time to reward the photographers in what they have done.
Intending to change narratives in the country, the work of some of the city's photographers, among them city journalists and artists, was also displayed.
I am grateful to be part of this event where one of my photos was showcased. I am actually a doctor by profession, but it's heartwarming to see your work presented in front of hundreds of people. That is great encouragement.
And out of them, the winners were chosen.
It is a great honor for me to be among the winners of the Best Photojournalist at my gallery event. I feel happy and excited as one of my photos was purchased. I encourage other Somali photographers to use their lenses to showcase the positive side of the country.
The event was also open to buyers who purchased a few of the photos that caught their attention. All this in a bid to support and encourage positive journalism in the country. The organizers hope to make this an annual event, showcasing the most appealing photos and paintings from all over the country. Jane Keo, CGTN.
And coming up in the sport, we head to the coastal